And we are talking about self-care and burnout today. I'm Jamie. I am with the James L. West Center. I've been here for almost 10 years, but I've been working with families and persons with dementia, families that are taking care of somebody with dementia for about 17 years now. That's professional, but I also have personal experience. You might hear me share some stories with some grandparents or my mother before she passed away. So I understand the extent to how hard it is to care for somebody with dementia, how hard it is just to care for somebody that you love and see them change and decline, but also how hard it is to care for yourself while you're doing that too. Because we have this, it's a mode that we get into is that we've got to be on par. We've got to be able to take care of my loved one constantly. But unfortunately, especially with dementia, because it can be a long road, that can come with costs if we're not really involved in taking care of ourselves. The James L. West Center, we are a nonprofit community here or organization here in Fort Worth. We're a long-term care community and we take care of persons that have a dementia disorder. We're able to do that in our long-term care. We have a residential space. We do have a day program. It's still, unfortunately, currently closed due to COVID, but we're actively looking to reopen that as soon as possible. And then through our education as well. So we do education that you guys are taking advantage of today for families, no matter where they're at, no matter physically, geographically, but also no matter where you're at in the disease process, caring for your loved one. But we also do professional training as well. And all of our education is funded through charitable gifts, whether through donations or through foundations, stakeholders in the community as well. Yeah. And this is just information that we need for the CE credits that we're offering. We're offering 1 free hour for nursing, social work, and licensed counselors. And today we are going to talk about quite a few things. So some of the slides I might go through fairly quickly. But like I mentioned, you will get a copy of these slides later on this afternoon, along with a copy of the recording as well. So I have here this ad for a perfect caregiver. And I've shared this before, but I just want to read it to everybody and see if you can identify, if you're able to fill the ad that they're looking for. So wanted, a full-time caregiver for a dementia patient. Must have unlimited stamina, be energetic, alert and attentive, friendly and caring, totally understanding, and forever patient. Must be willing to always subordinate your own needs to those of the patient and have few, if any, other commitments. Must know how to handle any situation. A background degree in psychology or human relations is preferred, plus basic nursing skills, basic knowledge of medications and their interactions, as well as side effects. Must be prepared to work for no pay and expect little, if any, appreciation for the above abilities from the patient or the family surrounding that patient. Raise your hand, nod, yes. Does that sound like some role that you can fit, right? Yeah, that's what it is. There are, rules imposed by others, but also self-imposed rules that we, when we take on this role as caregivers, we got to be perfect, right? I got to be loyal to my loved one. I can't be selfish. I got to do it all. I got to do it right. And I got to do it all right. And I got to do it right now. Right. And I can't rock the boat, whether it's with my loved one or with other people. I got to meet approval from everybody. Right. And some of those, like I said, are self-imposed and some of those are imposed on others. But that does come with the role of caregiving. Mm-hmm. But not all caregiving is bad, or not all parts of caregiving is bad. It's hard, it's stressful, but it's also one of the more rewarding things you will ever do. And there are a lot of great moments, great days, great times of joy. And hopefully with families, you get to strengthen your relationship with your loved one and those around you, friends and family. It doesn't happen for everybody, but that can be a rewarding part of caregiving. So I want to take a second. How are you? So, and this is a self-assessment, a caregiver self-assessment. Where are we at right now? Because we are so concerned with caring for my loved one. Most of the time, our needs are put on the back burner, right? We lose sight of what we need, lose sight of our own well-being. So the questions on the screen here, this is a compilation of a few self-assessments that are out there on the internet, but also that medical journals have put out. But just, I'm going to read some of these out. And if you answer yes to the majority of these questions, or even if you feel like you have high stress or you feel like you might be at burnout, then you might be. But let's just assess where you are right now. And just think about the past week. Don't go further back, or don't think about what you're going to be feeling in the next couple of weeks. But right now, last couple of days, do you feel unappreciated? Do you feel like your self-worth is determined by how others perceive you? Do you get anxious around conflict? Have you experienced feelings of hopelessness? Do you have problems separating your personal life from your caregiving life? Do you have problems sleeping? Do you often feel used up at the end of the day? Do you feel lonely? Do you feel a loss of privacy or personal time? Do you have difficulty making decisions? Again, if you've answered yes to most of these questions, you might be having high stress or might be suffering from burnout. And then just on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not stressful, 10 being extremely stressful, can you rate where you are on that scale? You can give it a number. Or again, on a number scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very healthy and 10 being very ill, can you rate where your current health is? And this is compared to what it maybe was last year or before you were caregiving. Can you put a number on where you are health-wise? I'm going to send out in that follow-up email this afternoon, I'm going to send you a caregiver self-assessment questionnaire. There's about 18 questions on it. And what we really encourage you to do is, while this is important, it's a self-check. Where am I? What am I really feeling physically, mentally, emotionally? And knowing where we're at is important, because when I know where I'm at, I can start moving forward, start making positive changes, or at least identify areas in my life where I might need to make a couple of changes. But we also want you to do a self-assessment about every 6 months, because with this disease, things change. Your loved one is progressing, and things with your loved one are changing, but things with you, your situation, they're changing as well. So being able to do this self-check-in, where am I? Let me assess where I'm at. Are there any changes I need to make? I need to be able to do that about every 6 months. Or if you feel you need to do it more often, right? Your loved one might have declined quicker and you need to do the self-assessment. So have that blank and have your score up, put it up somewhere where you can see it. So it's a reminder of, here's what I'm doing well, and here's where I need a little bit more support. So talking about burnout, this high stress, and we say burnout, but what is it? It's really a state of emotional and physical exhaustion. And it's caused by high levels or excessive prolonged stress. The feelings of it are being overwhelmed, and I just can't meet the demands of others or demands I put on myself. So it's cumulative, and it occurs after weeks or months of being on the job. And there's a relentless responsibility, stress and hassles just keep building up, building up. And there's a little relief and few rewards emotional rewards that you feel from the job. And this, job, we're talking about the caregiving job, the responsibilities of caregiving for this program. So anyone is at risk that's not taking care of themselves. So it's not one person that's going to be at a higher risk than others. Everybody that's not taking care of themselves or doing that self-assessment is at risk to get to burnout. However, professional and family care partners are at higher risk, especially those that are taking care of somebody that is terminal, or that has a terminal diagnosis. And anybody that has a dementia diagnosis has a terminal diagnosis. and it progressively gets worse over time. We're experiencing that steady decline. Again, it's that cumulative, it's months, it's years of buildup or change. And if I don't take care of myself or get relief from some of that, then yeah, you can very easily hit burnout. And stress, caregiver stress, is defined as a physical strain, emotional and physical strain of caring for somebody in need of help. 75% of caregivers who report feeling emotionally strained or report feeling emotionally, physically, or financially strained are women. And I think there are more women with us today than there are men. And caregivers are often referred to as a hidden patient. Y'all can maybe identify with that. Our medical director, Dr. Knabel, who's, she's been in geriatrics and an expert in the field for maybe 40 years now, if not more. I have heard her say over and over again in professional settings that when you're caring for somebody with dementia, you don't just have one patient, you have two patients at least, because you also have their primary caregiver that they're caring for too. And there might be more than that. Might have several people that are caring for that one person with dementia. So on here, there is such a thing as a stress curve. And this helps, again, this is kind of a self-assessment. Where am I on this stress curve or getting to burnout? Because there's kind of a phase. Like I said, there's a build up to burnout. And we generally, when something stressful happens, a diagnosis or somebody's not feeling well, we can generally start out with plenty of energy and we can have helpful responses to the situation. This is what we're going to do next. We're going to put these things in place and we've got this. We're ready to go. And then time goes on, right? And we become increasingly tired. We become more irritable. We're having a harder time with helpful, effective responses to situations, to comments, to other people, whatever it may be. And our performance and our attitude, I guess, kind of begins to suffer. And then we get to the fatigue. You see right here. This is, it's not all stress is bad. Stress can help us, can motivate us to do things, to get stuff into action, and give us that energy, right? But when it is prolonged is when it becomes too much. So you have the healthy stress, but then you get to this fatigue, which becomes exhaustion or worried. And then we have too much stress, especially if there's no respite or no self-care, no break. There's the feelings of exploitation, or you might feel you're being taken advantage of. There's the resentment that might come up, possibly a sense of failure can come up, some depressive feelings can come up as well, and we're in exhaustion. And then we just get into this downward curve, the downside of the curve, and we hit distress or burnout. And there's anxiety, we can have anger, we can have panic, and there's a breakdown in ourselves, which generally causes a breakdown in the caregiving situation as well. So can you maybe gauge where you are on this curve? Because we want to avoid at all costs the distress burnout. We really want to avoid being too much stressed out or too overloaded, and just kind of I want to stay here in this healthy, optimal stress area. And we're going to talk about how we can do that. But knowing that dementia affects caregivers, care partners, it does not just affect the person that's diagnosed. It affects the family, that intimate family. It affects the, your immediate, you got that extremities out there. It kind of starts to affect the community at large too. This disease, again, continues to progress, continues to destroy brain cells, and the caregiver or the care receiver, the patient, the loved one, becomes increasingly dependent on others for assistance. And this is assistance in memory. What am I supposed to do next? How am I supposed to handle the situation or the environment? To physically, they become more dependent as well. So not only do most care partners of somebody with dementia feel like they become their loved one's brain, but then eventually there's a lot more physical demands that happen. It's not a typical disease model. Dementia is not. So it's different than helping somebody that has just some physical issues and helping them transfer and learning those skills. Again, it's progressive and it's so individualistic also. Caregivers for persons with Alzheimer's or dementia or other kinds of dementia are very vulnerable to burnout because of the process, the long process of what this disease can last. Typically, it can last anywhere from 3 years to 20 years. On average, it's about 8 to 10. That's an average number from diagnosis. And not everybody gets diagnosed in the early stages or when you first start seeing symptoms, right? It's maybe several years later that we get a diagnosis. And then typically it's about 8 to 12 years. That is a long disease process. For some people, it's much shorter, and for others, it's much longer. And that's where a lot of this stress, that prolonged stress and burnout can happen. And then there's the feelings of loss and grief. Families are not, there's that anticipatory grief and that ambiguous grief. We are anticipating changes. We're anticipating a physical loss of our loved one, but also just other losses along the way. And it's so ambiguous. There's so much complexity to grief in somebody with dementia. So that adds to the stress level that we're living with. And caregiving and depression are very common. The Alzheimer's Association has said that more than 80% of dementia caregivers, both professional and families, report they frequently experience high levels of stress. And nearly half of those individuals report they suffer from depression. And I would gather, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure most people didn't report accurately. I really imagine those numbers are a lot higher, quite honestly. And then one of the leading risk factors for developing dementia is being the primary caretaker of somebody living with dementia without help or support or respite. And so what we're doing is we're continuously giving of our bodies, of our physical, our emotional, our mental, and eventually for a longer period of time, our body starts to lose its reserves. And then there is an increased risk for death for caregivers. It says caregivers, spousal caregivers experience high mental and emotional strain, and they have a 68% higher risk of passing away before their loved ones does, compared to people that are at the same age. And then adult children have a 63% higher risk of passing away before people around their same age if they've been caregiving for 4 or more years without respite or self-care or support. Now, I share these statistics with you not to scare you, but to really maybe for some of you kind of get your attention. Like this is important, self-care is important, and burnout's very real, and it's very easy to get there. So just a few more statistics. This is from UCLA, and this is caregiving in general, but 41% of women caregivers and 54% of men caregivers usually cope by using alcohol, or they increased their intake of alcohol. A little over half of caregivers admit to overusing prescription medications, and about 16% start to smoke again after taking some years off. And 72% are overweight. And we know overusing medications, being overweight, abusing alcohol, smoking, just flat out aren't good for us. So looking at emotions that we may have and see if you can relate or identify with any of these emotions. But the resentment of maybe a role reversal from child to parent. The child is now parenting the parent. There's resentment that happens, and there can be resentment from both parties on that one. I've also heard that it's not a role reversal, but if you're a spousal caregiver, you are no longer a spouse, you're a parent, you feel like. Being overwhelmed by too much responsibility, feeling underappreciated for everything that you do. And then the isolation of it, or feeling that you're alone, you're the only one in this, right? Nobody understands, nobody else understands. And that interferes with social life, but it can interfere with family relationships that you have, particularly with children Adult children are often juggling multiple responsibilities with their own spouse, their own children, their own careers, and now caregiving. And they can also experience and feel inadequate in providing care for another person so intimately. A child providing care, an intimate care to a parent, that's difficult, to say the least. And that's what I have done that. I've been a child providing care to a parent, but also just the difficulty of a spouse providing care to a spouse and the emotional strain that can cause. There can be cynicism and distrusting of others' motives that might come in and try and help. Professional caregivers and family caregivers, we generally just turn off our own needs when we're caring for somebody else. Out of town caregivers or family members or long distance family members, caregivers can feel guilty about not being able to help. And when they do visit, they might interfere. Or you think, you're here, why are you not helping out more? But there's that feelings of inadequacy. I don't know what to do, and I don't want to get in the way. Of course, there's not unusual for them to suffer from depression, but also other medical problems. GI stuff is pretty common with caregivers, stomach issues, high blood pressure, physical injuries just due to the physical part of caregiving, back problems, things like that. And then, of course, anxiety over the disease, over not being able to control what's happening, but just over anxiety of what's going to happen in the future. And then there can be criticism from other family members or neighbors or anybody who may not really understand the extent of what it takes to caregive for somebody with dementia. And then we have unspoken roles of caregiving. And these roles, they make us, there's an identity to them. We identify with these roles. There are personalities at times. These roles can drive our behavior, drive our choices, and it also can drive what we do with our time. And some of these, depending on the family, these roles may have started when we were children, and now we're just continuing to take on those roles. And sometimes it can be inflexible depending on the family. But these roles that we take on, whether they're put on by other people or we put them on ourselves, or both, a little bit of both there, really do increase feelings of stress and put us for higher risk of burnout. But have you ever thought of yourself as, I need to be Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect? Who's the fixer? Who's the doer? Who's the strong one or the responsible one? Who's the nurturer? Is there the money person? Is there a punching bag role? Is there the unreliable role that people play? There are other roles, that's not an exhaustive list, that come up in caregiving or come up with families or intimate group dynamics. But asking, what roles do I possibly play? And how many roles do I play? Because I play different roles depending on who's in the room. And understanding what these roles do to our stress. And looking at some of these signs of caregiver burnout. And we're about to get to self-care issues. We're here I understand what burnout is. I understand how serious it is, and that I hope will grab your attention. And understand sometimes where a lot of this can come from. It's not just a diagnosis of dementia. There's a lot of dynamics that are involved with this. But some warning signs, if you've already self-assessed, I'm kind of high stress, or where you're at on that stress curve, you might already be at distress burnout, or you're quickly coming to it. Here are some other warning signs that we can do as a self-check-in. Emotionally, are we more angry all the time? Do we have higher anxiety? Maybe are we living in denial that everything's going to get better, or if we just give it time, this will all go away, it'll blow over, or I'm just going to ignore it. Depression, feelings of exhaustion or weariness, overwhelmed, out of control, irritable, mood swings, emotional fatigue. And this can be where it can look like I'm crying all the time, or I just don't have any emotions at all. I just don't feel anymore. Social withdrawal. I've been drawn socially from friends, families, my own life. And it can be inward withdrawal as well. I'm going to bottle up my emotions. A loss of interest in activities. Physically, we tend to see it as in sleep habits have changed where we're not sleeping much at all. Having a hard time concentrating, or I start an activity or I start a task or something, and then I've lost track of what I've done and who knows where it's at or what I was even doing. Headaches, muscle tension, fatigue. Like I said, GI problems are very, very common. Short-term memory issues of your own. Repeated action, so you're doing kind of the same thing over and over again, like I'm going to go and do the dishes again and not really aware that you've been doing that over and over again. Self-neglect, you just don't remember the last time I got my hair cut, the last time I went to the doctor, did anything nice for myself, and poor eating habits. So these are just a few warning signs of caregiver burnout. This is what I'm feeling, and these are physical responses, and maybe how I'm behaving a little bit too as well. And I want to know what my warning signs are, and I want to know where I'm at, this self-assessment, so I can take the proper action and get better. Because self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You cannot take care of somebody without taking care of yourself. And so I say that you can take care of somebody and not take care of yourself. But what will happen is consequences will come up, and you yourself will get sick or injured, or you'll get a diagnosis of something yourself. So there will be some damage if you don't take care of yourself. The other thing that will tend to happen is you are not giving the care that you set out to give to your loved one because of exhaustion and that emotional change that you're having. You might be able to go in there and do the tasks of caregiving, like they're well fed, they're clean, they're up every day, we get them moving. So you get those basic care tasks done, but that quality of life task, that facilitating a life and what's really important, I'm too tired to do that because I've spent, an hour just to get them out of bed and get them dressed, and I'm exhausted. I can't do a quality time thing right now. So the quality of care unintentionally goes down when we're not caring for ourselves. So this is important. So one of the first things we can do, let me say here. So people that avoid burnout, or that are able to quickly bounce back from burnout, because we've gone into distress breakdown, they have good support systems in place. They have people they can talk to, they're connected, they have people that are committed to them and their loved one, and that have shared interests. They have this care net or support net that catches them. They have positive and healthy relationships and bonds with others. They have set clear and consistent boundaries. And this is something that's usually learned and practiced over time, that I got to set boundaries with my loved one or with other people in my life. Positive life skills. So this is, I am going to eat right. I'm going to try and get good sleep. I'm going to make good choices. And then they expect success. They expect that this is going to go, like today is going to go well. In success, I do want to say they have a healthy perspective on what success is and how to achieve it. So I don't want to say, I expect success and that my loved one's going to recover from dementia. But I expect success, and then that we're going to have a good day and we're going to smile and laugh together. That's success. So it might be changing your perspective on that. They have good self-organization skills, good communication skills, good self-reflection skills, and that's using those self-assessments or where am I at on that stress curve. And they use resources. They take advantage of the resources from whether it's friends trying to help out or it's community resources. And we're going to talk about all of these. But these are characteristics of people that are able to avoid or bounce back from high stress or burnout. So one of the first things we want you to do is be aware of what your warning signs are. Where are you at? Where's that self-assessment? But what, am I overly angry all the time? Am I having high blood pressure? Is my stomach not really feeling well at all anymore? So what are my warning signs for high stress is here? And what can I do about it? Because I want to be preventative I don't want to be reactive. I don't want to have to wait until I had to go to urgent care because of stomach issues. And now I'm having to take I've got my own chronic illness and having to deal with that. I want to be preventive because I could have prevented that if I was paying attention to what was going on with me. And I gave myself the time to be able to pay attention to it. So if you ever had somebody in your life, whether a good friend or an acquaintance or whomever, that just kind of said to you, hey, you're looking really tired. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? You seem really tired and out of sorts, really stressed out. I know we all have had somebody say that to us at least once, and we can take that as that was really rude. Why would you say something to me? Like, that makes me feel great. Thanks. I'm so glad you pointed that out. And we become defensive. Or do we take it as, yeah, maybe you could have delivered that a little bit differently, but hey, maybe that's a warning sign that somebody is seeing something in me that I don't see. And it's kind of blaring. I do look tired. I am high stress. Maybe I do have a short temper, or I'm more irritable than normal. So taking any comments like that and using it as a gauge. Oh, whoa, is that a warning sign? Is what they're saying might be true? Or do I need to do some more self-reflections, or do I need to get that self-assessment out and really be honest about it? The first step to resolving burnout and de-stressing as best we can is to realize that we're suffering from it. I know if you've even looked back on past times in your life where you've had high stress, how long we can go in that high stress state before we hit a wall. I know personally, it can be several weeks before I realize, or I choose to realize that something needs to change. So be open to what others are saying. And no one person can do everything. I'm sorry, this is covered up, but I can do anything, but I can't do everything. Maybe that I can do anything, but I cannot do everything. And that's true. I don't know anybody that can do everything. So self-care is not about self-indulgence. It's about self-preservation. So make your own health a first priority. And I know that you might be thinking, I really don't know what your life is like or what's going on. And that's true. But what I do know is that caregivers are constantly prioritizing the day. You get done what needs to get done every day. What is important is that you need to put your health at the top of that priority list every day. Whether you can give yourself 10 minutes or you can give yourself an hour, you've got to make that in the priority. That's what needs to get done today. That I do know. You got to accept your own limits, and we got to ask for help and create a support team. We're going to talk about how to build your team in just a second. Get organized, prioritize, and establish that routine. So whether you feel like you need a break or not, or you feel like you need help or not, you have got to start scheduling personal time, organize it, and stick to that schedule. Guard it carefully. Guard that time, your time, carefully, and do everything you can to make that time a priority every day. It is a non-negotiable for you and for your loved one too, that you're providing care for. So building your team, this is it's a different way to look at caregiving. And this is looking at your caregiving for your loved one, kind of like in a business way. So I have, if I think about Google, the company Google or Amazon or whatever, the person that's in charge of Google does not do everything. The person that's in charge of Walmart does not do everything. The person that's in charge of the convenience store down the street from you does not do everything. They hire people in their organization to do and delegate tasks that have got to get done. And generally, they hire people in certain areas that do better at that area than they do. So Google, whomever is in charge of Google, hires people to do their finances that are better at finances than they are. Or they hire marketing people that are better at marketing and social media than they are. They're putting people in place to help them be successful. And that's what we need to do as we think about our caregiving journey. It's a caregiving organization. So you can put your name there. You know, this is Jamie Caregiving Incorporated. And I've got to put these people in place to help me be successful, which at the end of the day is my loved one being successful, right? So I have on there, I have trusted sounding boards, I have support groups that I attend regularly, and I have these go-to people that I know I can talk to that understand what I'm going through. I'm using my neighbor to help with meals, just to kind of keep an eye out on anything. You know, if mom accidentally walks out the door and I'm not aware, or maybe I ran to the grocery store real quick, they have eyes on them as well. They're part of my care team. I've delegated that task. Maybe we use home care, or we're using a daycare to help with some respite and some socialization for mom. The doctors, the pharmacists, anybody that's part of that care team. Maybe eventually it's going to be a hospice care partner that's part of that care team as well. Maybe you have people that you've said, you know what, I can't take on cooking and cleaning. Ooh, I can have some groups maybe come in and provide meals every day, or I can have my niece come in and help me clean the house. I've got these people in place. I have people that I talk to about legal and financial paperwork and maybe helping me research what's out there that I can take advantage of. So I've put these things in place to help me be successful. I did learn this from a caregiver who is a part of our support groups, and he was talking about getting help. And he finally got some home care into his home to help. And they were listing off, well, if somebody was to come in and help you during the day for so many hours, what can they do? And he was starting, can they cook meals? And he would say, well, no, I can cook breakfast. I can get her out of bed in the morning. They don't need to do that. I said, well, do they need help with light housekeeping? No, I can do the light housekeeping. I don't need help with that. Okay, so do they need help with showering? No, I can do mine. I can continue to shower my wife. That's not a problem. I don't really need help with that. So it came down to, he kept saying, well, I can do all of these things. And he could, but it was becoming too much. It was everything, because as his wife progressed, it took longer to do these things. She maybe was a little bit more resistant to some of those things he was trying to do for her, right? So we're letting go of that small stuff. Even if you can do it, let go of that small stuff and free up your time. And what also is beneficial to building your team is your loved one doing it early, because you're going to get used to having that help, and so is your loved one. They will get used to having other people in their lives doing certain things. If it's further along the disease process, and they're in middle stages and they're having a harder time understanding what's going on, and then we start introducing people into the home, that's going to be a harder adjustment for your loved one. We need to give them the opportunity to adjust and get used to other people. And asking for help, getting help from friends and family, and eventually getting help from paid organizations you'll need to pay. But you've got to be honest with yourself about what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Know what your limits are, right? Remember, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So you might think, I can be with mom most of the day, but I really do need some uninterrupted time to get some work done or some chores done or whatever it is. Being realistic about it. So be specific when you're asking for help. Make strong asks. And if you have a list of things, this is what I can use help with every day. Here are some items I can always use from the grocery store. So if your neighbor's going, just say, hey, will you grab me some toilet paper and some salt? I know I'm going to need these things eventually. I know I need help with the yard work. That's something. I know I need help with legal paperwork and just kind of reviewing insurance papers. You don't want to ask everybody to do that, certain people, but here are things that I need help with, and being specific when somebody asks or when you call on for help. Hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. Do you think you could help me for 2 hours on Tuesday or another time that works better for you? And it's being very specific, and it's being strong about it. It's not giving them an out saying, oh, I know you're really busy and I hate to ask, and it's okay if you can't do it. It's okay. I totally understand. You know what? Never mind. I've got it. You ever find yourself doing that? And consider their interest, whomever you're asking. If they hate running errands, they more like to be at home, then don't ask them to go run events or errands for you. Maybe they like to cook. Maybe they can cook some meals for you and you can free some up as the weeks go on. Another thing we need to do when we're talking about self-care is a change in our perspective. And I've kind of already alluded to this a little bit. But when we change our thoughts, we change how we feel, and then we can change our actions. And this is scientifically proven. It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? What I tell myself about myself or about the situation. So I might be, I'm caregiving for my dad, and I tell myself, I am not going to be any good at this. He does not want me to caregive for him. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. We've never really had that great of a relationship. This is going to be too hard. Oh, I'm not going to be good at this. So those thoughts that I tell myself are really going to influence my emotions and my beliefs about the situation, whether they're real or not, or true or not. Mm-hmm. But what I start to believe and feel, dad doesn't want me. Oh yeah, he didn't want me here. This is not good. He's going to get more mad at me than he already was anyway. Oh gosh, this is going to be bad. These feelings, these beliefs are going to influence our actions and our decisions. Dad doesn't even want me there. I'm just not going to show up today. I'm just going to call him and check in on the phone, but I'm not going to put eyes on him because, that's going to be easier for everybody. Well, that influenced my actions and my decisions that I made. It influenced how I behaved. So we have to be able to change our thoughts. And that's the great thing about this is we can change our thoughts. And when we change our thoughts, what we tell ourselves, it's going to change how we feel and what we believe, and then it'll change our actions and our decisions. So a thought can be, you know what? This might be hard, but this is a great chance to learn. And I really hope, and this is a great chance for me and my dad to strengthen our relationship. I'm going to really work at that. I'm going to be excited about going to seeing dad on a regular basis. I'm telling myself that. I may not feel it right now, but I'm telling myself that. And the more I tell myself this, it's going to be what I believe, where I'm going to have a good visit with dad. I'm going to go see him. I'm going to make that effort. We're going to have a good visit. And it's going to influence how I behave when I'm there, right? I'm going to be more chipper. I'm going to be more happy. I'm going to have more helpful responses in a situation or to comments. And that will strengthen the relationship. And now dad had a person seeing him, not just a phone call. So this is a true thing. When we are optimistic and anticipate successful encounters, we transmit a positive attitude, and people usually respond. They respond favorably. They respond the same way. There's an emotional contagion. They can take on the emotion of others, good and bad. If we're pessimistic and expect the worst, and our attitude is often negative, people can respond the same way. So they're negative too, but they can also respond by avoiding you. But it all starts in your head and what you're thinking. So intentionally shifting our perceptions, intentionally shifting those thoughts, what I tell myself, being aware of what I am telling myself, and do I need to change some of the wording? And every day, being intentional about seeing what you're surrounded. We're surrounded by blessings and beauty every day, particularly in the process of being a caregiver, looking out for the rewards of being a caregiver, being able to provide care and give to somebody else. And say, I refuse to be angry or distraught. Other ways to do this is to actively reflect on our strengths daily. So here are my strengths. Here's what I've done today that I feel good about. I feel proud about. Here are my accomplishments and successes. And we do this daily. Write them down, share them with others, say it out loud. Just don't think it or push it off to the side. And doing this daily discipline of actively reflecting on ourselves and our positive traits really eventually will help change our thought patterns. We got to keep track of our positives, our strengths, what we did well. Or, you know what, I'm glad I didn't respond bad to that comment that dad said. I'm proud of myself for that. And reflecting on these, but saying it out loud, telling somebody else or writing it down, it gets into our subconscious a lot quicker than just thinking about it. And then every time you or someone else does something positive, praise them, praise yourself or praise that person. So, if it's dad and you have a kind of a rough relationship with them and he says something good or responded well or said something funny, just say, give them a praise, give them encouragement, or even just a thank you for letting me be here. This will increase positive behavior in yourself and in others. A few other things to do to help improve care, self-care. And this is important. You do want to find enjoyable activities to do with your loved one. This strengthens your relationship. It strengthens your positive perspective on your caregiving role. If you're doing something enjoyable with your loved one that they can do as well, whether it's going for a walk, it's gardening, it's cooking, whatever they're able to do, what are their abilities and what do they enjoy, looking at photos, listening to music. But also know you got to find enjoyable activities to do separately with your loved one. Not only this promotes independence for both of you, so they're doing an activity that they're able to do on their own. And they have a sense of contribution to the relationship or to the household or to the community, a sense of purpose. But it also gives you the same feelings. And you're able to take a break. You're able to take a respite, and a respite is a short break. A short step away from the situation, but you're not stepping away or taking a break from your loved one. You're taking a break from the disease. And that's where sometimes this can get muddled, because when we do get into a burnout or we have high stress, prolonged stress, and some of that resentment or anger can come up, then there's guilt. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so angry. I shouldn't feel this way about mom. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't resent having to go see her or do this stuff, or feel obligated. I hate those feelings. It's not that you're feeling that way for mom or for your spouse or for your brother or sister. It's you're feeling that way towards the disease. And sometimes the disease and the person can get muddled. So if we take these breaks, it's just, no, I'm taking a break from the disease, not my loved one, because I don't want to have feelings of resentment. I want to have helpful responses and have a good perspective. I got to be able to take a break from the disease, not my loved one. And the best care in the world will not change the outcome of dementia. There are frustrations and guilt and feelings of powerlessness with this disease, and these feelings can contribute to burnout. But rather than dwelling on the inability to cure the disease or stop its progression, draw strength from what you are able to do in spite of. They can live well with this disease, and you're able to provide that quality of life for them. And that's what you want to concentrate on. You can provide dignity, you can provide care, love, high quality of life, comfort, you name it. Even though we can't have control on the outcome, we can influence the journey. And we do influence the journey or that process. And our faith helps many people alleviate stress and develop perspective, strength, and inspiration. So trying to stay centered in positive aspects of caregiving. So a person too busy to take care of one's own health is like a mechanic too busy to take care of one's own tools. You know, we don't go to a mechanic that has tools that are broken. They take care of their tools in their shop, right? So no one can do your listening, can do your understanding for you. You have to do this for yourself. And this is listening to our body and asking ourselves, do I react when something is wrong, or do I constantly listen to my body, and am I preventative? Am I practicing good self-care? So self-care and nurturing your body, this is exercising regularly or moving regularly. I'm not saying you got to go out and jog 5 miles, but you're moving throughout the day. You're moving your body, using your body for motion, swimming, dancing, walking, stretching, you name it. You're eating nutritiously. And I have plant-based diet there. Because this is just shown over and over again how good a plant-based diet is for the whole body, physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. And it's shown to reduce your risk for developing dementia, the plant-based diet. Getting good rest, but this is good quality sleep, but also restorative downtime. Drinking more water, so just kind of increase your water intake, but you're also using water kind of as a therapy. You run it over you. It feels good when you run water, splash water in your face, run it over your hands, feel the temperature of the water, the texture of it. But staying hydrated, of course, is important. Watch your caffeine intake. And then seeing your doctor for any health issues that you may have, or just keeping that preventative maintenance for them. And I love this, make your body a good home to live in and be grateful for it. Nurturing your soul. So spiritual practices increase clarity and focus, steadiness and grounding. They elevate our mood and they improve our perspective on the big picture. And this can be you're visiting or you're counseling with a spiritual leader. You might be meeting with a prayer partner. You're reading devotionals. You're meditating. You can be meditating on sacred texts or on scriptures or on poetry, whatever that is for you. Affirmations. You're praying or meditating throughout the day. You're doing spiritual study. You contemplate nature, and being in nature is spiritual as well. Journaling, and relaxing and letting your soul be at peace. In nurturing your heart, self-care, tell your story to somebody else. I have at least one go-to person that will let you vent, no matter what hour it is. It's a relief to be able to share our ups and downs. And it's also when you're telling your story or sharing with people, it's important to share with people that know what you're going through. Talking to somebody that's not been a caregiver for somebody with dementia is helpful if it's a trusted person. Talking to somebody that's been or is a caregiver for somebody with dementia is a whole nother story. Because they're able to validate what you're feeling. And there's a trustworthy, and there's an understanding there that you just don't get. So getting into a dementia caregiver support group, or talking with somebody you know from the past that's been one. Talking with a professional, they help you really work out inner conflicts you may be having, or also help you recognize any coping skills you didn't realize you had. Positive coping skills. Again, journaling, reading poetry, drawing, singing, dancing, gardening, music, and listening to music that's relaxing or therapy for you. Aromatherapy is great, and looking at photographs, surrounding yourself with photographs of past, of family, of vacation, whether it's on the mirror, it's on your desk, or it's in your car or on your phone, just looking at these and just looking at, I have some pictures on my phone that sometimes will just pop up, and then I find myself for the next 2 minutes just looking through these photos, and then I feel so much better. It just lifted your mood, right? And laughing and crying. I think laughter is not used as much in self-care, but thinking of a time when you can barely contain yourself from laughing, or the time, what makes you laugh? Watching little babies laugh or looking at little animals. Go out and actively seek things that make you laugh, and know that it's okay to cry. It's therapeutic to cry. There's a release of energy and emotions when you cry. And nurturing your mind, because this is a whole person. It's the whole person well-being self-care. Enroll in a class, continue education, and that might be, and of course we constantly want you to continue your knowledge and build your skills in being a caregiver and in dementia. But sometimes it might come a point like, I've got to not do anything about dementia. I want to learn something that's completely separate from that. So doing, go learn about history or whatever it may be. Read books, audiobooks, again, keeping a journal. Subscribe to other journals or other magazines. What out there that interests you? Listen to TED Talks or lectures. Question things. Ask hard questions. Think about things. Listen to other people's perspectives. Discuss stuff with other people. Meditate. And imagery. And this is you in your mind. You go somewhere else. So you're taking like a mental vacation, and it's using all of your senses. So think of a favorite place you like to be. Or just imagine a place you would want to be. And that could be anywhere from sitting in front of a fireplace and you can hear the fire crackling, you can feel the warmth. Again, using all your five senses, maybe you're drinking some hot chocolate, or it's lounging on the beach and you hear the waves, you smell that ocean, you hear the seagulls, you're feeling the sand. You go there with all of your five senses and that imagery. It's a mental vacation, it's a mental break. And it really can de-stress, and then you come back from this mental vacation with a different perspective. And then using community resources. So here is a list of local community resources. I have, of course, the James L. West Center There's the Texas Area Agencies on Aging phone number. So depending on where you're at, there are area agencies on aging throughout the nation, not just in Texas, but there are several here in Texas. There's one specific to Tarrant County. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is North Central Texas, and that's just a list of some of the services they offer for older adults and caregivers, not all the services, just some. The same thing with the Tarrant County Area Agency on Aging or Dallas County or wherever you may be. Caregiver Teleconnect, this is a virtual kind of offering, or you can listen to it on the phone, but they have speakers and programs through them. Alzheimer's Association, of course, they have programs. They also have a 24-hour hotline or helpline, excuse me, it's a helpline. In this, literally you can call this any time of the day with any question that you can possibly think of, or if there's a situation that's happened, there's a flare up, maybe your loved one's having heart and you don't know what to do right now with your loved one, you can call them, you will talk to a live person and they can help you through it. And we cannot highly recommend enough to have that phone number nearby. Or if you just have a question about, I don't understand this advanced care planning paperwork, can you help me with it? Dementia Friendly Fort Worth, here in Fort Worth, they offer a lot of programming for persons with dementia that are virtual right now, but also other programs. And then UNT Health Science Center, of course, they have a great diagnostic program, but they have some caregiver resources as well. And that's not an exhaustive list of community resources, but it's a good start. And the stress of caregiving, burnout, fatigue, breakdown is very well documented and is very serious. When you're taking care of somebody, it's important to identify what your stressors are, where are you, what those warning signs are, and make necessary changes to decrease the stress in your life, to avoid burnout, or maybe you need to come back from it. So finding support, practicing those self-care, nurturing your whole body, so you can provide the best care for your loved one in a healthy way. So again, that is our information here at the West Center. My email address and Holly Glover email address, as well as my colleague. She also does programming here, education, and she's a licensed counselor too. And she runs most of our support groups, or she runs all of our support groups, excuse me. So I will stop sharing, and I know we just have a couple of minutes, but are there any questions or comments or anything anybody wants to add or ask? Okay, well, if there are no questions, again, you will get an email this information, an email this afternoon with information. You'll get the slides, you'll get a copy of the recording, and you'll get the evaluation. So I do ask, please fill out the evaluation. For feedback, it should only take about 5 minutes. But if you're seeking CE credits, you will need to fill out the evaluation to get your certificate. So I appreciate your time. And we will hopefully see you on a program coming up soon. Thank y'all very much. Oh, Vicki, yeah, you're asking about the Caregiver Teleconnect. It is through WellMed, and it is for everyone. So in WellMed, and I might, let me look at it and I can send it out in the email if there's a direct link to the Teleconnect. Because I know they have the list of past programs that they've done that you can listen to. It's audio, it's not a video, it's just all audio recordings, but you can listen to those, and I'll send y'all that exact link in there. So, and the number for Dementia Friendly Fort Worth, I'll include that in the email. I'm sure I do have it, I just don't have it off the top of my head. So, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. Bye-bye.